Hey guys, Wyatt Claypool here. I'm not sure if you've been following the New York City Democratic primary, but the person who won it was a communist nutcase, Zohran Mamdani, who many on what is supposed to be the mainstream Canadian left are celebrating, because being far left is mainstream in Canada. As much as people want to pretend that they represent the middle of politics, they do not. These people represent the hard left because they are just whatever the opposite of what mainstream republicanism is in the United States. We are going to start off here with Laura Babcock, who says, "Wow, I knew Zohran Mamdani was impressive for all the interviews I've heard and watched, but damn, this gives me hope for America. A brilliant, principled, positive, communicative millennial with serious influence for social equity and improvement." Um, the man wants to have publicly funded grocery stores, like owned by the state grocery stores. The man wants to have wealth taxes. He wants to have higher property taxes in areas with higher white populations. He's extremely anti-Semitic. What are they talking about? He literally hates capitalism. Does Laura Babcock want to come out and say that she now opposes capitalism? Of course she does. But the thing is, none of these people will actually say this out loud in Canada when they or their party is running for election. They always, again, pretend that they are on the moderate center left of politics, and everyone to their right is on the far right, despite Canadian conservatives being pretty moderate, being pretty center right, wanting reductions in government spending and taxes, wanting parental rights enforced, stuff like that. Really basic stuff. But these people want globalizing the intifada, which is something that Zohran Mamdani literally shouts. We have Laura Babcock here saying, "So excited about this Zohran Mamdani. We need younger, ambitious leaders with fresh ideas." Yeah, he has ambitious ideas and he's younger, like, I guess Fidel Castro used to be. And here's another thing she said. Again, I want to go through a few. I'm going to kind of keep cycling back to Zohran Mamdani and all of the leftists in Canada celebrating them. And again, these people worked in mainstream news like Laura Babcock, or they're constantly invited in mainstream news panels. These are considered normal people that you should just have on to talk about the daily issues of life, despite some of these people being in favor of terrorism. But no, they're mainstream left because they support big government, and that is what is considered mainstream. Even if you support like flat out communism, it's still mainstream because to lower the size of government, to shrink government, that's far right. But Laura Babcock here says, "This American lawyer is warning people not to travel to the USA. I will not respond to any whataboutism regarding the Canadian who died in ICE custody. There are many credible eyewitnesses and media reports about horrible conditions in ICE detention. They won't allow oversight." It's complete nonsense. And I could go over this particular case with this guy's video, but we all already know he's lying. I just want to jump over to the news stories that are being run on Canadian mainstream news. Again, another example of how mainstream news in Canada has become so far left. The Canadian mainstream press, fear mongering about this case that was easily debunked. I had to pull that up quick. I wasn't doing that. There we go.
Some breaking news: a 49-year-old Canadian man has died while in the custody of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency known as ICE. Johnny Noviello was taken by ICE agents when he was checking in with a probation officer. The exact details on his death, including the cause, are now under investigation.
So, right there, we should all already be super skeptical, and frankly, this shouldn't even be a news story. Once he says he was checking in with his probation officer. Why? Was it because America is super evil? Like they're super right wing and evil, and they made like a man who had a Latino name check in with a probation officer? It may be. Now, follow me here, that the man has committed a lot of crimes, and that's why he has a probation officer. I think this one account, Contrarian, does a good job of explaining the whole thing. Tell me how this is not Canadian media rage baiting. A 49-year-old Canadian man has died in ICE custody. Facts. Canadian entered the U.S. with a visa on January 2nd, 1988, so he has not been in Canada since January 2nd, 1988. He became a permanent resident there 3 years later. In October 2023, he was convicted in Eastern Florida for racketeering and drug trafficking and sentenced to 12 months in prison on May 15, 2025. He was arrested by ICE at the Florida Department of Corrections probation office, issued a notice to appear, and charged with removability, the release adds. And why wouldn't he be picked up by ICE? The man is involved in racketeering and drug trafficking, and he's just a permanent resident. He currently has a status in the United States that would allow him to have his status revoked and kicked out because they don't want drug dealers here, and frankly, we don't want drug dealers in our own country. And I wish we would enforce our immigration laws harder. When people are committing crimes here, we should be kicking them out. When people are starting protests in the streets and they're on a student visa, they should have it revoked and kicked out. You don't have permission to show up here as a guest and start making trouble. But my goodness, the Canadian media just went along with this. Oh, he died in ICE custody. Okay, what does that mean? The guy's involved in drug trafficking. I doubt he's in great health. What is he, going to the gym every single day and he doesn't touch his own supply? I'm going to doubt it a little bit. And he's, again, quite a bit older. He went to the U.S. in 1988, and even if he was a kid at the time, it's not like the man is like a 20-year-old who got killed in an ICE detention center, and maybe we should look into it. Again, he's a criminal. Let's stop fear-mongering. And two, he's not actually a super young guy. Anyways, so now let's jump over to some other stories that make my point here. Here is a liberal MP, Zalma Zaid, who went to Europe to a meeting about Israel and Palestine and started talking about how it's a genocide. We all have to declare it a genocide and enforce the ICC. I think it's like the ICC warrants on Bibi Netanyahu and whatnot.
I don't hesitate to say, as I have in the Canadian Parliament, that what is unfolding in Gaza bears the hallmarks of genocide. And in that respect, the ICC's arrest warrants and South Africa's proceedings against Israel at the ICJ must be respected in the name of justice and accountability.
Justice and accountability. The South African government currently has a law passed where they can just expropriate somebody's property for no compensation if it's going to be in the national interest for them to take your land from you. There is just mass murder going on from just the police not caring, of mobs going around and killing white farmers and also black farmers as well, usually because they want on their property, assuming they're a white farmer, and just decide to shoot them in the head anyways when they found out they weren't, because these are scumbags going around doing this stuff. But we're going to back the proceedings of South Africa, a country quickly devolving into just complete chaos, like Mad Max type conditions. We're going to back them, and we're going to declare what Israel is doing a genocide, despite the fact that max like 30,000 people have died, in which even the Hamas health authorities have basically had to admit are mostly Hamas fighters because they're all fighting age men, 75% of them. And that's 75% despite the fact that they also hide behind women and children. And over time, the population of Gaza has been going up because it turns out there's no genocide. It would be very easy to mass murder people in Gaza. It's not that big. You could just carpet bomb the thing. And Israel obviously has not done that. But this lady is considered a normal liberal MP. She is a far left anti-Israel nutcase. And I'm not saying that you have to care deeply about Israel. But when someone has this seething hatred for a Canadian ally and will just make stuff up about them, she has put out every single hoax that has ever happened in Gaza. When you hear about, a missile hit a parking lot in a hospital and it killed 400 people, she'll just say that it was the IDF. And it'll later come out that nobody really died. And those who did die died because it was actually a Hamas rocket that fell short. She will push every single hoax because she was a lunatic.
While today's debate is rightly focused on the horror in Gaza, we must not lose sight of the broader picture. We must do everything in our power to hasten the realization of a viable and sovereign Palestinian state living side by side in peace and security with Israel. This remains the only credible path to lasting peace. Recognition of the Palestinian state is long overdue. I applaud the European countries that have already taken that step. I hope more will follow, and Canada as well.
And also, she's also going against her own government's policy right now of not recognizing it, because you generally shouldn't reward a terror group with giving them their own state after they tried to mass murder a bunch of Jewish people in Israel as well as other non-Jewish people. But she's a nut. She thinks that this is somehow it's just a normal thing to say because the Liberal Party has become far left. I just want to show you something else, or another thing. Here is a Canadian organization that, again, will be quoted by the media. This organization will be taken seriously by Canada's media and by Canada's political left in general. The Canadian for Tax Fairness organization. Huge congrats to fair tax champion Zohran Mamdani. Zohran Mamdani, who, again, wants to tax people based on their race. He literally, look at this. He's literally having the Trump administration. So I'll just pull this off screen. He is literally, again, trying to increase property taxes for postal codes that are more white. Bring this up on screen right now. Zohran Mamdani proposes taxing whiter neighborhoods in New York City. New York City Democratic mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani says he wants to shift the tax burden to richer and whiter neighborhoods if he secures elections in November. A housing policy document from Mamdani's official website included a pledge to shift the tax burden from overtaxed homeowners in the outer boroughs to more expensive homes in richer, whiter neighborhoods. Newsweek contacted the Mamdani campaign for a comment via email on Friday outside of the regular office hours. Why it matters. Mamdani's proposal has already sparked a backlash, with one conservative commentator branding him racist and urging New Yorkers to support incumbent Mayor Eric Adams instead of who's running in November as an independent. And what to know, and it goes on. Actually, I've already heard about this, so I don't need to read more of it to you, but effectively what they're doing, and it is technically true that people that houses in the outer boroughs in New York City pay higher property tax rates because they've artificially capped historic neighborhoods, or when a house was built 100 years ago, it tends to get locked in at a lower property tax rate than newer homes. You could maybe equalize things, but the whole point is he doesn't want to equalize things. He just wants it to be higher for the sake of it being higher. He has said things like this. But now I need to move on to another story, to another creator. Again, somebody who is actually, shared by a political party. This is Christo Avalos, who is actually frequently retweeted by not just the NDP leader Don Davies, but the NDP account frequently. He says, unpopular opinion, I think it's excellent for NDPers to take examples from Mamdani, but we're missing something. He could actually raise money so much he legally couldn't spend more. The next NDP leadership race needs someone who can build a logistics campaign war chest. My ultimate opinion is I support a higher entrance fee to the NDP leadership race, but I want a longer timeline to allow emerging candidates to demonstrate their ability to raise money. And then he goes on and talking about other things about this. But again, everyone keeps endorsing Zohran Mamdani, just a flat out communist. We have here Sherry DeNovo, used to be an MP or an MPP for the NDP. Mamdani stands for free childcare, free transit, raising taxes on high earners, and minimum wage to rise to $30 an hour. Immediate rent freeze, bold as possible. The New York City mayor, change is possible. This is not the New York City mayor, by the way. It is the Democratic nominee for the mayor. And there's actually a good chance he could lose to a Republican, because right now in New York City, the guy's such a nut. We have Eric Adams running as an independent. We have Andrew Cuomo running as an independent. We have this guy, Jim Walden, running as an independent. We have 4 Democrats in the race, including Mamdani. And then we have 1 Republican in the form of Curtis Sliwa, who I'd really like to see win. Basically, the New York City mayoral race is turning into a Batman comic. We have 2 corrupt officials in in Eric Adams and Andrew Cuomo, and then we basically have the Joker, Zohran Mamdani, and then we have Batman, Curtis Sliwa, who used to run the Guardian Angels, an organization that would basically do street crime interventions on subways to make sure that people weren't getting mugged or assaulted. But again, Sherry DeNovo was sharing stuff like that. Do you know who else? Because you could say, well, Wyatt, these are figures along the fringe of Canadian politics, even if mainstream media takes them seriously and they're constantly on mainstream left podcasts and CBC and whatnot. What does it really matter? Well, look at this person. Merritt Stiles, congratulations, Zohran Mamdani. What you've built goes far beyond New York City. You captured the imagination of progressives everywhere with a blueprint for how we can win, with hope, with values, and with the belief that politics can be force for good. We're watching and we're inspired. Do you know who Merritt Stiles is? I know you might not because she is a consummate loser, but this is the leader of the Ontario NDP, the second place party right now in the province of Ontario. They have the second most seats. Merritt Stiles is endorsing Zohran Mamdani. And again, they keep saying, "Oh, you've captured the imagination of progressives with a blueprint, with hope and values, and all this stuff." He's an anti-Semitic communist. He's an anti-white, racist, anti-Semitic communist. What are you talking about, Merritt? Is this what you embrace? Do you want the government to nationalize grocery stores? Do you want to have wealth taxes? Do you want to like again arrest foreign officials because the ICC wants them arrested when they've done nothing wrong? What's wrong with you? But again, this is mainstream on the left. Let's go to another video quickly here. I want to just jump to this guy, and then I want to jump to another video by him. But we're going to look at our favorite leftist, Frank Dominic, endorsing Zohran Mamdani.
So a socialist just won the Democratic New York primary, meaning that most likely he is going to be the mayor of New York City. So for a lot of people in the NDP camp, or even people who are centrists and liberals, saying that, you have to appease certain groups of people, you have to behave in certain ways in order to get certain things accomplished politically. No, you don't. You have to stand on your convictions. You have to believe in what you believe in, and you have to keep pushing forward a message that you know is going to resonate with people, right? That is technically a form of populism. Just because what Mamdani said in some cases was socialist doesn't mean that socialism is the answer. It doesn't mean that capitalism is the answer. What it means is that he was looking at what people were doing in their daily lives. He was looking at how they were hurt. And he chose to speak to those people's concerns and provide them solutions that would actually work, or at least...
The man's delusional. Do you know how Zohran Mamdani won? It was white, upper middle class kids who live in homes that their parents pay the rent for, who came out and voted for Zohran Mamdani. He had people like Kamala Harris's, daughter-in-law. What was her name? Something Emhoff. She was voting for him. Zohran Mamdani won people who make more than $100,000, and he won white voters. Those obviously are indicating something. He won younger, white, rich voters. Black voters, Latino voters, working class voters, all went Andrew Cuomo, despite the fact that Andrew Cuomo got wiped out because he had a terrible turnout game, because he ran an uninspiring campaign and he is just a unlikable person. He still won, walking away the black vote, the Latino vote, and the working class, lower income vote. He did very well with those people. Zohran Mamdani basically won in the same way that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez ended up winning her Democratic primary back in the day in 2018. She beat somebody who nobody really liked that much, who wasn't trying properly, and basically in a very low turnout race, a bunch of white kids showed up to basically say, yeah, we want communism. Well, let's get back to Frank here.
In his opinion, that would work. And here's the thing. Mamdani is a democratic socialist. He's just speaking with conviction, and he's speaking to the concerns of everyday people. And if the
not everyday people, you should look up the stats.
NDP, and if the Liberals in Ontario did stuff like that, they'd have a better chance of beating Doug Ford. And if the NDP at the federal level did stuff like that, they probably have a better chance of holding party status. But it's because they keep trying to lean towards the center. It's because they keep trying to be this big tent party, which they're not. If they stood on their convictions, people would respect them, and there would be a lot more support for them. At least that's what I think.
And the thing is that that's also a delusional opinion, because Zohran Mamdani ran in a very particular place. I guess acting like far left nutbags, which is what he's basically saying, that you don't have to run to the center. You don't have to want to win any of the people on the center. You can just run as hard left as you want, and you can win votes and you can win elections. There is a difference between winning a Democratic primary in a very split field on a ranked ballot in New York City and winning a national election in the United States, let alone Canada. Do you think that if you ran a Zohran Mamdani as the NDP leader, that you're going to pick up seats in Alberta, Manitoba, maybe downtown Winnipeg, but not really? You're not. Maybe you can win some seats in like Vancouver, downtown Toronto. You're not going to be winning a lot with a guy like this. But these people think this is mainstream, or think that there's lessons to take away from this, because they are in fact very much on the hard left. Here's another video that Frank Dominic made about something that he thinks is deeply radical. And sometimes what someone thinks is radical demonstrates how radical they actually are.
If you're sick of leftists infighting on TikTok, why don't we actually address the real issues we have in Canada? Like people like this saying how we need ICE in Canada. Oh, but it gets worse because she shouldn't need Duolingo to order a double-double at Tim Hortons. Oh, her page just gets worse though.
That was considered bad. That's like, sorry, based. I agree that you should be able to speak to people in the service industry, and we shouldn't have such high immigration numbers and such high temporary foreign worker numbers that you can walk into dozens of restaurants and literally not find somebody who was born in the country working there, or someone who is even a permanent resident or citizen. It's just people still here on temporary visas. I've seen so many restaurants, retail stores in my area who you cannot find, and we are in a very, like, it's just like, frankly, it's just a very white part of town. And when you walk in there, you can't even find a white person working at a McDonald's or at an A&W. That's kind of concerning, that people are literally just loading up their service businesses with TFW workers. Yeah, we should have ICE. We literally do not have a way of making sure that people leave the country when their visas expire or when they violate the law. But he thinks that this is radical.
Now, she got absolutely dogpiled in the comments, obviously, and she called everybody crybabies, blaming the housing crisis we have in Canada, not on capitalism, but on rich people coming here with money, arriving.
What's his point here?
Housing crisis we have, comments, obviously, and she called everybody crybabies, blaming the housing crisis we have in Canada, not on capitalism, but on rich people coming here with money.
Well, it's not just rich people coming here with money. It's just any amount of people coming here, because even if you come here and you don't make a lot of money and you just work one of those frontline service jobs, the thing is that if you're willing to put like 90% of your money towards a rentable apartment, you can probably still get it even if you work minimum wage. And then you can go to food banks for food, and you can do and people do this. That's why our food bank use is so up. It's not normal people using it. It's the TFWs, it's the students, it's the new permanent residents who are mostly using food banks. And so it is people also bringing in massive amounts of money from overseas and just buying up 2 or 3 homes in places like Vancouver. That also happens. That's also an extension of just how bad our housing policy is. Capitalism made us do this? No. The capitalism does not make you have bad immigration policy. And again, he doesn't want to say it's immigration policy because he's a coward. He's dishonest. He's a liar.
Arriving with their extended families and all living in the same house. And it seems like she's blaming immigrants for the Tim Hortons sale. Sure, okay. And ironically, she says immigration should be about integration and not domination. But literally just take 2 seconds on her page and you find out, yes, she's like a biblical trad wife or something. I don't know. Okay, this.
So a woman made a fun post about how she, appreciates like manly men, and she doesn't like, frankly, limp, just whiny, constantly snarky people like Frank Dominic. Wow, who could have guessed one? And she's a trad wife, or maybe she just in like traditional values. That's not being like, he's trying to turn into some like caricature. Oh, she's one of these crazy trad wives walking around barefoot in her home.
This one's actually my favorite. She says that Big Pharma is making people not get measles because measles prevents you from getting cancer. The reason that we all
Okay, you found somebody who believes something silly. Okay.
Get the measles vaccine is not because of encephalitis. It's not about kids getting brain damage. It's about stopping us as adults from getting cancer. Okay, no, but it keeps getting worse because the American flag is her pride flag. Which, aren't you Canadian? I'm confused at this point. Yeah, and the left doesn't.
Aren't you Canadian, Frank? Because the thing is that you endorse the people who just slather everything and act in pride flags, pride progress flags all the time. Does he not find that an unpatriotic thing to do? That in not even the month of June anymore, but just the entire pride season, we just constantly replace Canadian flags and other flags on flagpoles with pride flags. and it just becomes this left-wing virtue signaling nonsense. But the thing is, he thinks that's totally fine. She's making a point that she likes freedom and she likes the rule of law and she likes the way the Americans do stuff. So she's calling it her pride flag. Plus, it might be a little bit of engagement baiting by trying to get Americans to like her stuff. But still, I kind of get the point here.
And reproduce in the bedroom. What? The left can't bump uglies, I guess. Only God-fearing conservatives can have children. The left has to create them in government schools. Lady, I can't even get your kids to wear deodorant. You think I'm going to get them to change their entire worldview? I hope that at least gave you a little bit of...
Also, she's not actually exactly wrong. People who are on the left, those very left-leaning millennials are the least likely people to actually have kids. So, he can act like that's ridiculous. Really not when you actually look at the statistics, but whatever. Oh my goodness. Yeah, so guys, I hope that you have learned something today. Yeah. The left in Canada is very left, and there's no moderation here. There's just no moderation present. These people are on, again, mainstream news shows. Frank Dominic gets invited on the CBC all the time. CTV News. People like, I didn't bring him up today, but Steve Boots will get brought on to, he will be brought on to mainstream news shows. You will have profiles written about him in glowing terms. I've been attacked by the mainstream news for merely having a show. They can never even find something wrong that I say, but I'm conservative and I have a show. That might be a little far right. Wyatt has a camera and a microphone, a little far right. But somebody like Frank Dominic, by the way, who's in favor of Luigi Mangione killing that healthcare CEO, he won't say that he is, but when the story came out and the guy shot a father in the back, he basically says, well, I understand. People have to understand why he shot him in the back. People have to understand the motivations and the pain that he was in, even though he didn't have the insurance from that company. The guy doesn't actually admitted he doesn't understand how the insurance company was work, and he just murdered a man. And Frank Dominic and so many of these other lefty people came out to justify it all. Oh, actually, guys, before I leave, why am I suddenly packing it in when we haven't talked about my favorite video here? I almost forgot it. We have, even when the left criticizes the left, it's only because they are not left-wing enough. Here is Rachel Gilmore criticizing Bill C-5, which is a bad bill. The Conservatives voted in favor of it, though, because while it's bad, it doesn't really do anything. It just basically is fast-tracking new projects by getting regulations out of the way. It doesn't even do that well, because you still have to follow so many band council consultations and environmental regulations to the point where even a fast track project is going to probably take years longer than any normal project would in the United States. But here's Rachel Gilmore criticizing it.
Tonight, Bill C-5 just became law without any new amendments, and that is really bad. Because while some amendments were added to it in the House that addressed some major concerns, it wasn't enough.
So wait, was there amendments added or not? She's not even good at constructing a video. It's 12 seconds into it. She says there's no amendments made. Well, there were some, but I don't like them. And the amendments were basically transparency things where you're going to if you're going to approve a project, we need to have transparency on investments of people who are in cabinet who approved the fast tracking of it. So we know that people aren't just approving fast tracks to companies that they hold stock in or something like that. That Brookfield Asset Management can't be the main investor in a project that Mark Carney's giving the green light to.
To give you an example, if a major project moving ahead would kill the last remaining member of a species, but that project is deemed to be in the national interest, the government can technically still build, baby build.
Okay, what's her problem? Okay, so in this hypothetical future, there's a last remaining member of a species. If it's the last remaining member of a species, guys, we're not going to get another one. If it's only one, they're not going to reproduce, by the way. So this is already a really stupid hypothetical. Do you really think that we're going to, in this hypothetical where there is 100 of these particular animals left and they're all living in this one area and we're about to drop a nuclear bomb on them so that we can mine something below them? Yeah, I'm pretty sure the government's not going to do that. But she's invented a scenario where this is the last old growth tree and the government could technically burn it to the ground for no reason. They can always do that. Anyone can do that. Yeah, bad things can happen. But like, this is just an absurd, like, she doesn't actually have a criticism against it. And again, I think Bill C5 is bad because it doesn't give uniform deregulation across the board. It's arbitrary based on what the Liberal cabinet wants.
And they really didn't fix the concerns around Indigenous consultation, like, at all. To the point that Indigenous leaders have warned that this bill passing creates the conditions for Idle No More 2.0, which was a massive Indigenous-led protest movement that demanded the government respect Indigenous rights, sovereignty, and land.
In the bill, they literally say they are going to follow UNDRIP standards. It's the worst part of the bill. It's why it's probably not going to get anything done. There is actually the duty to consult in the bill. And that, what are they what is she possibly talking about? It's in the bill. And she's just saying because Indigenous leaders, frankly, have come out and whined that they're not given ultimate power, that this means that the bill is bad.
Now, I want to give you a big caveat here. I was planning to make a different video tonight, and I am going to quickly tell you what that was going to be about. But this bill became law tonight, and that is really important to talk about. Still, the story I was going to report was important too. About a week ago, I reached out to the federal government to ask about the fact that the Trump administration had pulled the plug on a specialized support hotline for LGBTQIA+ youth who are considering leaving us. I wanted to...
Yeah, because you should probably just have a normal hotline for those people. Them pulling the plug on this makes it sound like, oh, they don't care if kids commit suicide. Obviously not, but why do we have one that's specifically for those kids? Just have a hotline for any children. If anything, also, no, it's probably a real... I don't want to like go into it today, but maybe teaching kids gender theory and confusing them early in their lives is not a good strategy for not making kids unstable.
To know how our government plans to protect the 2S LGBTQIA+ community from similar attacks here on the things they need to survive, as well as whether moves like this have prompted Canada to reconsider its safe third country agreement with the United States. To seriously oversimplify it.
So now the U.S. is not a safe third country. We must now allow every illegal immigrant in the United States to escape now into Canada because America is not safe. Every refugee who considers going to the United States should then go to Canada as well. That we shouldn't say that, well, you could have stopped in the United States. No. They need to come to Canada. Any refugee, we need to rip up our safe third country agreement with the U.S. because they don't have an LGBTQ plus children's like suicide hotline. Do they have suicide hotlines? Yeah, but they just don't have that one specific. So now immigrants or people leaving Somalia, fleeing Somalia, cannot stop in the America because they do not have this hotline. This woman is insane.
That agreement means that if you land in the US first, you can't seek asylum in Canada. Now, the government didn't answer that part of my question, but a spokesperson for the Minister for Women and Gender Equality, Richie Valdez, told me, quote, "We are deeply troubled by the rollback of queer rights abroad."
I'm just gonna stop this. We have crime everywhere in Canada going up, and Richie Valdez is going to be like, we are deeply concerned about. Be deeply concerned about something in Canada. Be deeply concerned about all the extremist groups that we let like travel to Canada and set up shop here. Have a problem with something like that. I don't care about this hotline, frankly. And this is what the left cares about. It's stuff like this. It's fringe, niche nonsense if they're not actively supporting something actively bad, like an anti-Semitic communist candidate in New York City. These people are then whining because a hotline was shut down, which now means that we can't, no refugee is safe in America anymore because this hotline was shut down. Okay. Anyways. So that should be it for me today, guys, in this video. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, do all that great stuff. But I hope I've made my point today. The left in Canada has gone far left. Are there some moderate liberals around? Definitely. But the people who actually control the narrative and have the strongest voices are just full on in favor of socialism, full on in favor of just like globalize the anti-intifada leftists running for mayor in New York. They they have obtuse opinions like her. They lie about the danger in the United States that ICE agents are gonna kill you, or well, we don't really know if they killed them, but they're gonna detain you for what? drug trafficking and racketeering, well, oh my goodness, what a fascist state. You can't even drug traffic anymore without the government getting on your case. Who could have guessed it? Anyways, so that should be it for me today, guys. See you later.